actually watched that interview, just at least part of it. Yes.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. They lost 47,000 soldiers.
You will be crushed completely.
I will kill whoever I want, whenever I want, and I don't give a f.
At the end, you will be killed.
Hello, I'm Artem Lysak, the journalist based in Kyiv and documenting war for the last 2 years.
And I'm Maria Avdiivka, security analyst covering the human cost of the war.
Today we are going to talk about Avdiivka, frontline updates, and also about the Navalny death and the military aid from US.
And you are watching Decoding Ukraine. Please follow us, share, like this video, because this will help us to continue doing our job, to tell you more about the war, to tell you more what is happening here in Ukraine, because we really want to share our insights from on the ground here in Ukraine. The largest attention is now paid to what is happening around Avdiivka.
Yeah.
Russian troops have fully occupied the city. Ukrainian command has said that Ukrainian troops have withdrawn from there and they are now fortifying around Avdiivka. When was the last time you have been in the area? What have you seen? What do you hear from your sources, Artem?
Yeah, first of all, it's like Avdiivka, Ukrainian soldiers were defending Avdiivka for the last 10 years, yeah? If somebody will tell me 4 months ago that Avdiivka will fall, I wouldn't believe that. There was a huge defense line over there, but because of amount of Russian soldiers, we lost it.
For someone who is not aware of why it is so important, or is it a strategically important point, how far is it from Avdiivka to Donetsk, or why this city was so important and why was it so fortified?
I mean, first of all, every Ukrainian city is important. Ukrainians don't want to lose it. Strategically, Avdiivka was very important. It's very close to Donetsk, and it's like logistical hub. So it was very, very good position to see Russian forces who are going to attack you and to destroy them before they even reach Avdiivka.
So if Avdiivka was so fortified and so important for Ukraine, how did it happen that at the end we have to withdraw our troops from there?
So there is a few factors why it's happened, and the main one is the lack of ammunition. It's one of the most important thing, because if we have enough, we will destroy Russians before they even reach the city. It's the first thing. The second thing is our military commanders made some mistakes, and a lot of journalists and experts were saying that like a few months ago that it might happen that we will lose Avdiivka, so we need to have a second defense line just or in the city or just near the city, but it wasn't built. One of the main factors, because Russians do not care about their soldiers. So the statistics saying that they lost 47,000 soldiers for the last few months when they start this another assault on Avdiivka, which started in the mid-October. 50,000 men. So 17,000 dead, and the rest are injured. It's unbelievable cost, but we understand, because this election year and Putin made an order that he need at least some kind of victory before the election. They've made it happen.
Are there any civilians left in Avdiivka? Because I've heard that Russia was really like literally erasing the town from the face of earth. They were bombarding constantly. Up to 80 bombs were dropped on Avdiivka every day, just completely erasing the town. And this is what I've heard is a Russian strategy. They don't want to have a city battle, city fighting. They prefer just to erase the city completely. They did this already with Mariupol, with Bakhmut, and now Avdiivka is the next city that no longer exists. Do you know if there are any people still in the city? Is there like anything left at all?
It's very interesting question because the one of the problems for Avdiivka, it was always a frontline city. So the battles over there start in 2014, and a lot of civilians living there, they used to war. And at some point, a lot of people, they didn't see this line that's okay, you have to leave the city. It's just they will erase everything to the ground. I was in Avdiivka last year, in the beginning of last year, and there was a lot of civilians there. There was a few humanitarian hubs who were helping civilians, but after that Russians start bombing city completely. Civilian houses, they don't care. They bombed 2 schools where the humanitarian hubs was, and a lot of volunteers fled. After that, there was an order from military administration to evacuate all children, and all children were evacuated from there. From my information, there's like a few hundred people left there, still there, and I mean, among those people, there were some kind of those who we are calling here in Ukraine waiters. They're waiting for Russians. It's in percentage, it's like less than 1% of population of Avdiivka. But anyway, it's hard to imagine that you are staying in the city which are bombing all the time. And I remember last year there was even a story when a woman trying to hide her child from the policemen who were trying to evacuate.
Yeah, I remember that as well. So she was trying to hide the kid because so that the police does not evacuate him. And like, how does it at all aligns with Russian state media saying that Russia is here to protect and defend population in so-called Donbass?
Yeah.
So how do they explain this at all? So they completely erase the city and then they tell that they are here as the defenders of people from Donetsk and Lugansk.
Yeah, this is very. I can't understand how Russians are still swallowing this shit that they are telling them. So recently I've seen 2 posts in a Russian Telegram channel, which first post is saying how they were kicking out Ukrainians from the Avdiivka, and the second post is Ukrainian military destroyed Avdiivka, look, and like images of Avdiivka. This I can't understand how people in Russia cannot understand the obvious things. So when I will do this, here on the screen you will see the video of Avdiivka, and it's unbelievable. Just take a look. Everything is completely destroyed.
I've talked to someone from there, actually from the 3rd Brigade, that also has to withdraw, and they are now around Avdiivka fortifying their new positions. And the guy told me that they experienced like from 60 to 80 Cubs. These are guided aerial bombs daily. So they didn't have even a chance to dig in the city. They were thrown to Avdiivka already when the battle was in one of the latest stages. So there was merely no place where you can hide people. So every house, every like small thing was used as a position, and then Russia would throw these aerial bombs and just completely destroy everything. And this actually led to the situation when Russia lost 6 planes in just one day, in 24 hours, because they were getting too close to the city, and that allowed Ukrainian troops to shut them down, to down them. But Russia did this just because they were completely like showering the city with these bombs.
Yes, exactly. And when somebody is telling from the Europe that like we gave such a lot of air defense systems for Ukraine, but believe me, it's not enough. It's not enough. For example, yeah, you're exactly right that Avdiivka aviation was the main weapon, and these caps were the main weapon for Russians to just completely destroy the city. And it's almost the same as Marinka. Marinka is just not exist anymore. It's there's no even one house over there.
Yeah, and it's so heartbreaking to see people posting photos and videos from Marinka, from Avdiivka, from Bakhmut, from the cities where they used to live, but they no longer exist because Russia completely destroyed them. And this is just, imagine the human toll for everyone. And so what do you think will happen next? So what will Russia do? People must be really terrified, especially those living in Pokrovsk, in Kramatorsk, in cities that are next to Avdiivka, that are really very close.
Definitely Russians will continue their assault, and the thing is, we still don't have enough of ammunition. We still cannot protect properly the front line properly, and Russians can use this moment, and they are using this moment, because assaults are happening not only in that direction. They are trying to make they counteroffensives in Zaporizhian front, in Kupiansk front line, and they will continue. And we understand, of course, they also need a bit of break because of all of the losses they have. Anyway, they are continuing. And if we will not get the aid we need, we will lose town by town, village by village, and city by city.
Yeah, this is driving me crazy when Western experts refer to this as a stalemate. This is not a stalemate for a second, because Russia all the time is attacking in every direction they can, and they want to get more, and they are not stopping for a moment. And this is I don't know what words to use to tell people in the West how dire is the situation and how much Ukraine needs these weapons, how critical are these weapons, because Ukraine is fighting with Russians for 2 years now, and everyone is exhausted. But nevertheless, Ukrainian soldiers are there. They fight, but they need these weapons, because without that, they just won't be able to continue. So what arguments do you think can persuade American Senate to vote and to support this aid package for Ukraine?
Fortunately, Senate already voted it, and now it's like Congress need to vote it. And the thing is, we are just trapped in their politician games, unfortunately. Sometimes it's we got a feeling that U.S. politics now is just a madness. It's a circus. Their national security depends on what Trump will say. If we are talking the message we need to tell them, if they are so worried about the money, we will say the thing that if you are not paying now, you will pay more later. If you're not, you postpone this bill. We lost a city. We need to liberate this city. It will cost much more. And you are paying money, and we Ukrainians paying our lives. I know this. They don't care about Ukrainian lives. Okay, it's not argument. Maybe they will care about money. So it will cost you much more, but later.
Because actually Putin is not in the war with Ukraine, and this is all, all this bullshit he is saying about protecting citizen in Donbass. This is just a pretext. His only goal and his main goal was always war with NATO, and he actually stated that he sees NATO and the United States as his main enemy. So he is in this kind of war, and this is what he wants to achieve. And without being stopped here, he feels the impunity that he can do whatever he wants, and he will go further. And this is, I think, the most important thing Americans have to understand, that Russia is much more close than they might think.
Yeah, exactly. And a long time ago, Putin said that the biggest tragedy of 21st century is that USSR collapsed. It's his own tragedy, and he is thinking that it's the main tragedy of the world. And he wants just to recreate it. It's obvious. And we know that some of the countries which were in USSR now are NATO countries. And obviously, that in the future, he is planning those things. He's planning, and those things means war. It's very strange that even this Russia propaganda reached U.S. Congress. It's unbelievable. I just recently I've just read that Congresswoman Taylor Greene, she said that there is a Nazis in Ukraine, there is like Azov battalion and everything, and we don't need to pass this bill to Ukraine. This is madness that in the third year of the war, this Russian propaganda is reaching the US Congress.
After all the losses Ukrainians had, after everything, all kinds of atrocities Russian troops committed here, after so many children killed, and after actually Americans, citizens of America being killed here because they were fighting here together with Ukrainians, still some people will say that this is not our war. Okay, if it's not yours war, then everyone will lose, because this is what Russia is looking for, to break our unity. And it's very sad to see that their propaganda and disinformation is reaching its goal, especially in the United States, the country that was for a long time in the Cold War with Russia, with the Soviet Union. I remember from the history how Americans were taught where the bomb shelters are. They were afraid that at some point the Soviet Union will launch the nuclear bomb, so everyone was living under the threat of the nuclear war. And this is approaching again, and we are still waiting for this aid to be approved. Why? But not to be too pessimistic, we can see that many countries in Europe who are much closer to Russia and much closer to the war in Ukraine, they understand the threat really well, and they feel the threat, and this is why they're helping much more than at the beginning of the war. Let's look at Germany. France and Germany and Britain have already signed the bilateral security agreements with Ukraine. More countries to follow. Baltic states are helping with everything they have, with all kinds of weapons they can only supply, and many other countries do the same, because they understand that the threat from Russia is very real.
Exactly, and I believe they are preparing now for the moments when they are preparing themselves to that Trump will be a president, and
might be a president.
Might be a president.
That's a possibility.
That's a possibility. They understand those. That's why those agreements were signed just recently, and it's not just secure agreements. It's just a great 8 packages, military and humanitarian. But US was and is the greatest supporter for Ukraine, because they have the weapon we need. They have HIMARS, they have air defenses systems and the rockets, because it's very important. For a long time I was living in a bubble thinking that there's before wartime, pre-wartime, that there's such a lot of corruption in Ukraine, there's a lot of politicians, they putting their own interests higher than the national security. And now we see that a lot of people in US, a lot of Republicans in US do the same thing, exactly the same thing. I couldn't even imagine that they will put their own interests and the interests of one man higher than their national security. It's unbelievable.
Speaking about the help from the Congress, we cannot just keep the Tucker Carlson visit to Moscow and the interview, but I would rather call it a lecture he was given by Putin. This was highly commented here and in the West. His appearance in Moscow and his one-on-one interview with Putin, where he actually gave a possibility for the dictator, war criminal, accused war criminal, and the person responsible for many murders. He gave them the floor to lecture and to express his views for almost an hour. Did you watch the interview?
No, I watched maybe 10 minutes, and I mean, it's impossible. I just read what it was about. Anyway, I mean, it's a torture just to listen to 2 hours of bullshit history, just because it's not real history, and like a lot of historians already commented it that it's just a bullshit that Putin said. But what is interesting that Tucker Carlson, he didn't ask any provoke questions. He didn't ask anything. He just allowed Putin to say whatever he wants. And I believe he was very surprised that Putin was giving him a historical lecture instead of just justify all his crimes, because he got such a big platform in US. And it's so this Carlson, it's very interesting phenomenon. So I know that a lot of Republicans are afraid, senators, congressmen, they are afraid what Tucker Carlson will say.
Oh, really? Is he so popular?
Yeah, and the thing is, he's very popular, and there's a lot of rumors that he might become a part of Trump team if he will win election.
But at least he knows his history now.
Yeah, and the thing is, so the main audience of him is are Republicans. But the thing is, a lot of people are still calling him a journalist, which he is not. He is not a journalist. So he's a part of all of these conspiracy theories in US. And he might be a blogger, but he definitely not a journalist. But he's not stupid. He know how to manipulate. He posted a video from Russian subway, from Russian metro, and the thing is, he was telling that Russia is better because they have cleaner metro stations. And also he went to grocery store and bought some supplies for a week, as he said, paying for that only $100, not mentioning that the salary in Russia is like, average salary in Russia is $400 or $500 per month.
Why wouldn't he stay there in the country that he really likes?
Exactly. So if you like Russia, you can just live there.
Yeah.
So there's not a problem. But yeah, he's not stupid, but his manipulation has a great audience. So hundreds of millions of people watched that interview with Putin.
This is actually a very threatening thing because this is the possibility to manipulate millions, and this is what is being used, and especially used by Russia. I actually watched that interview, just at least part of it. Yes.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
It's because that's my job, you know. I am a researcher also of Russian disinformation, and I wanted to hear what Putin was saying, and he said nothing new, because I was watching many Putin interviews or like statements before Russia invaded, and these are the same things that he was repeating many times. So there is zero new things in his speech, but he was just repeating usual Russian lies about that no countries existed except for Russia. So, and this again returns us to the point why Russian imperialism is so threatening, and it's not threatens only Ukraine. It's just the Russian desire to build a new empire. And so he repeated everything, and Tucker Carlson was listening with an open mouth, not responding, trying to ask questions, but very not firm. So actually allowing Putin to say everything he wanted and what he planned to say.
Yeah, and I believe it was so hard for him to take anything that can be used as a quotes for headlines in that interview, but the only thing that they were trying to push is when Putin said we are not going to attack NATO countries, and it's also speculations because when Tucker is saying that, oh, look, Putin said that he is not going to attack any NATO countries. He's not telling about the hundreds of other lies that
exactly.
Putin said. He didn't said, oh, but I want to say that just a few days before he invaded Ukraine, he said he is not going to do
Absolutely.
that. Just a few years before he annexed Crimea, every year he was saying, we are not going to annex Crimea. We are not... I remember there was one time when he said, like, after the question of journalists, he said, like, are you crazy? Of course not. Like, how can we attack?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very manipulative interview and the other content that he's producing from Russia.
This is actually the worst thing. He is taking Russian lies, Russian disinformation, Russian propaganda, and put it directly into American news, into American information space,
and even congressman's mouse.
Yeah, this is the worst you can imagine, and we see it happening. Like, people open your eyes, see this is Putin, accused war criminal, telling you about the history of Ukraine. He lying you about this, lying you about everything, lying you about he is not going to invade a NATO country, which he has been preparing for. This is like total nonsense. Just even to think about believing him. How could this happen? And look at what he has already done. Not only in Ukraine, but elsewhere in the world, what he has done in Syria, in Georgia, what Russians are now doing in Africa, in many other parts of the world. So this is how you can actually believe a person like him.
On the 24th of February, on the day of anniversary, U.S. prepare a new sanctions for Russia, not just because of second anniversary, but because of Navalny death. We don't know what will be in this sanctions because just we are filming it a few days before. But anyway, there is a fact: Russia and Putin killed the leader of Russian opposition, Navalny.
Do you think that by killing Navalny, Putin shows that there is no way for Russia just to continue and like upscale the confrontation with the West, so that there is no opposition at all, and it's not possible in Russia. So what is the message, do you think, Putin sends by killing actually the most important figure in Russian opposition?
From my perspective, it's not. I don't think it was a message for the West. I think it was a message for Russians and for those who are thinking about opposition. So they are afraid of this anti-war position that a lot of people in Russia have, and they just trying to show that everyone who against the regime might be killed. You see how a lot of Navalny supporters are just putting flowers near the monuments, near his photo, and they are arrested. They are trying to show that, okay, now we became more and more North Korea. If we gave you some kind of freedom earlier, we want it back. You are not free people at all. Usually, revolutions, they are starting like that, and he don't want anything like that happen, and he want to be secure with this. So I think this is a message for all oppositions, all of Russians who against Putin. So keep your head down.
I actually think that also he is showing to people inside Russia that this is the only way. Like, you don't have any options. You have to obey, because otherwise you will be crushed completely. And I think this is what people in the experienced during the Soviet times, when there was no possibility to voice something against the regime, because then you will find yourself in Gulag, in the camp, or in prison, or you will be completely disappearing.
But now it's even worse, because even in Soviet Union, they can't arrest you to put the flowers on this Soviet monument, So it's Russia. People in Russia need to understand that they are even in a worse position that their fathers and mothers were in Soviet Union.
Do you think anything at all can provoke Russians to go massively on the streets and to make like a huge, really huge protest movement against the regime, to like completely put it down, or it's not possible for Russians at all?
Just a few days ago, I believed it's possible, but now I do not.
Because is it because of the reaction for death of Navalny or something else?
Yeah, exactly. So I thought for myself, this can be a trigger. His death can be a trigger. You're a leader of a great amount of people, and they're killing you, and almost nothing happened. We saw a few hundreds people putting flowers, a few hundreds people arrested, and that's it. So I don't believe, if a few days ago I believed that there will be some trigger, there will be a black swan, but now I completely do not believe at any kind of protests. So the thing is, now we have the war. Now we have the situation that we understand that the war will stop only when Ukrainians will win or Putin will die.
Yeah, so to explain this is that there was at some point thinking that there might be some processes inside Russia that will lead to the collapse of the regime, and then Russia will fall, and this will mean the victory for Ukraine, or this will lead or help Ukraine to win, right? And this is why everyone was following so much Prigozhin march to Moscow, and this is why there was a hope around Navalny. But now we see that it's not possible. The regime is becoming stronger, and the only thing how Ukraine can win Russia is only by military means, and this is why Ukraine needs these weapons, because this is the only way that is left, right?
And the main message that Putin is sending to the Russians and to the West, that I will kill whoever I want, whenever I want, and I don't give a what you're thinking about it. we saw at the day Navalny died. I believe Putin was had a meeting with the students or something like that, and he was smiling all the time, and he didn't even mention this death.
I think this actually makes him proud. This murders it makes him proud. He thinks like how mighty I am. I can, make every person who doesn't goes along with me on my way. I made this person disappear in a way that shows everyone that this who is behind, right? Because everyone knows who is behind this murder. Everyone knows who is behind the killing of Prigozhin and many other Russian murders that were done because they were approved by Putin, because no one will do that without his approval, right? So he is the person responsible for everything.
Yeah, and of course he will be happy because last time, like hundreds of FSB agents who were involved in the poisoning of Navalny failed to kill him, and I believe he was worrying that they will fail to do that when this guy is in prison. Yeah, but it's hard to fail.
I actually think that they allowed Navalny to live for so long in prison was like one of the way of how they tortured him, because his fate was known from the moment he crossed border inside Russia. So this was like his future was already done. It was just the moment when Putin will give the order to kill him. And I think that they were torturing him for how many, 3 years? Just to show everyone that this is what will happen to everybody if you go against the regime, and then at the end you will be killed. So
yeah, and it's interesting that he wasn't just in prison sitting in a cell. So the quarter of time he was putting in this freezing punishment cells, very small, very freezing, and usually when he is not in that, when he wasn't in that cells, they were putting some kind of homeless person to his cell who smells very bad, and it's like it could be like in the summer with 30 degrees Celsius. So it's also kind of torture. In the beginning of his when he was in prison, they were trying to not give him to sleep. So they're putting in music all the nights. The security guards in the prison were waking his up like every hour, so he was exhausted, and it's also kind of torture.
Yeah, the Russians are really good at it because they have actually take everything from the Soviet Union and developed it. So we also hear what they do to prisoners from our prisoners of war who were exchanged and who are now back to Ukraine, what they have gone through. So we can just only imagine what can Russia do to someone in prison in Russia, because Russia doesn't have anything to do with the human rights, with dignity. Just these words do not exist for Russia, and this is actually threatening. But Navalny death is seen a little bit different in the West and here in Ukraine. And how you would describe the difference?
Yeah, so a lot of people here in Ukraine, they don't like Navalny because literally he was even himself, he was described himself as a Russian nationalist. And
especially at the beginning of his career, right? Because then he became more cautious because he knew that people in the West don't like that. They don't like people with the nationalist views. Yeah, so he became more cautious was what he says in public.
Yeah, exactly. But he till the end he had these imperialist ambitions. So, for example, there was one phrase that Ukrainians hate when he was asked about Crimea, and he said that it's not a sandwich, we can't give it back like that.
It's also very important to highlight here why people in Ukraine do not like this attitude of so-called good Russians, right? Or Russians who are against Putin, because many of them actually still do not want Ukraine to be an independent state. Yes, they are against Putin, they don't want the regime to be there, but they want the empire. They actually are fond of the idea, and they do not think that countries such as Ukraine, such as Baltic countries, they need to be independent, because they still have this idea of brotherly nations, all of them that have to be inside of some kind of, relationship with Russia, where Moscow and Russia will be the leading state.
Yeah, of course, and they also see this war from the perspective of Russian interests, and it couldn't be Russian interests while they are killing Ukrainians. It's very interesting. There are some politicians in Russia which we call good Russians, and what they are saying that, okay, you can't. There's a lot of people now under this regime who is breaking a law, who judges, militaries, and a lot of people who are in this system, and those good Russians are saying we can't imprison all of them. The only those who are in charge are it's all of their fault, and the others are just victims of this regime.
Yeah, it's very important to understand that this war is not done by Putin solely, and even if regime changes and someone else come, this person will not necessarily stop the war or will accept Ukraine as an independent state and understand that Ukraine is an independent nation which has its own path.
There is one question what I want to ask you. Yulia Navalny, so she created a Twitter account, and in a few days she had almost 300,000 followers, and she made a statement that she will continue her dead husband job. What do you think about that?
Well, from where is she now, actually?
I don't know, US or maybe Europe, anyway.
I think this is the same kind of trap, just fighting with Putin and not fighting with the Russian ambitions to restore the empire. I think to have some support from Ukrainians, or at least some understanding, anyone who is going out and saying that I am just against Putin has to say, I am for Ukraine to be independent state. I am for Ukraine to be in NATO, in European Union. I am for Ukraine do whatever this country wants, and I will never ever interfere in the internal affairs inside Ukraine. This is a separate state, and we do not have anything to do with this country. And I have never heard it from anyone. Not from Navalny, not from his wife, just from anyone, because they always consider Ukraine to be part of their world where they can decide what's good for this country and what's bad. The death of Navalny, the murder of Navalny, should show the West that the only way to beat the regime, to beat Putin, to beat Russia, is to help Ukraine win this war, because there is no hope that something or someone will provoke the regime to fall. So the only way of how we can win here is to win militarily. And this is why please stay with us, watch Decoding Ukraine, like this video, share it, and please write in the comments what you would like to hear in the next episodes, because we would really like to continue tell you what's happening in Ukraine on the ground, how everything is seen from here because we have a unique expertise and unique knowledge which we would really like to share and give you the broader view and to beat Russian disinformation and Russian propaganda, because it's the way you tell the truth and show people what is happening.
Exactly, and for the last 2 years, me and Maria, we were mostly on the front lines. We were frontline cities, and we were covering this war for international media and for Ukrainian media. So and in the next episode, we will tell through our own experience about the biggest Ukrainian victories and the biggest losses. So stay with us and don't forget to subscribe. Bye.
See you.